Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to introduce him. He has been on the scene for over 50 years and has worked with so many greats from Simon and Garfunkel, Eric Clapton, George Benson, Aretha Franklin, Chick Corea, Carly Simon, and Joe Cocker, to name a few. He is a Grammy award-winning drummer and one of the most prolific musicians of all time. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Steve Gadd. Brother, how are you?
I'm good, and how about you?
Good, man. It's so good to have you on the show today. Steve, like I said, your name seems to come up quite a bit, when we're talking about drummers and having conversations. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about your background and your humble beginnings. Because, like I said, you've played with everyone under the sun. But I'm curious to know a little bit more about you, your humble beginnings, and how all of this started, how you got involved in playing music.
Well, I grew up in Rochester, New York,
Okay.
and my family was very supportive. I was living. I didn't know we were going to go back this far. Um, yeah, until I was 3, I
Hmm.
lived. My parents, my brother, and myself. My brother's 2 years younger.
Okay.
We lived with my dad's uh, parents and his brother. And my uncle, his brother, my uncle Ed, was a drummer in high school
Okay.
and was also in a veteran of. He was in the army,
Hmm.
and he was marching in a veterans parade, and I saw when I came downstairs there was a red parade drum on the chair in the parlor, and so I felt when I saw that I was drawn to drums, and they tell me or they've told me that from when I was tiny I was banging on everything.
Hmm.
So they sort of channeled my energy and gave me a pair of sticks. And my uncle got a pair of sticks, and we had 2 little round wooden pads. And he'd play with me, and we'd play along with John Philip Sousa marches. And it was a lot of fun, So it was great hanging out with the grown-ups. I liked that I liked the marches, and the parade drum. And I was a kid.
Right.
And so I've always loved the drums.
Hmm.
And I was born into a family that were very supportive, and for both me and my brother, taking us for me for drum lessons, my brother for
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
studied trumpet, and we both tap dance. So
Okay. That's pretty cool. Steve, one of the things that I found very interesting, I read when you were 11 years old, you played with Dizzy Gillespie.
we sat in, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Tell me about that.
Well, so there was a club in Rochester, New York, called the
Hmm.
Ridgecrest Inn,
Yeah.
and they would bring bands in for a week, and they were bringing all the big names a week or 2 weeks maybe. They brought
Okay.
Gene Krupa, Art Blakey, you know, Al Boletto, uh, um, uh, Earl Papa Joe Jones, Oscar Peterson, Carmen
Hmm.
McRae,
Hmm.
and Dizzy was there, and they used to have matinees on Sunday afternoons from 4 to 6, and my parents and family and Chuck Mangioni's family, we'd all go to the Ridgecrest and listen to the bands playing, and the bands used to let us kids sit in.
Wow.
So we sat in with Kay Winding, with Dizzy, with Art Blakey. All those guys would let us all sit in, and they'd
Hmm.
repeat. They'd come back because that's how they were making a living. Playing these clubs. That was it. And this was before bigger concerts.
Yeah.
So we got to know these guys, and it was great. It was a great hang. They were very gracious, all of them,
Mm,
and encouraging.
yeah, yeah.
So that was good.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, playing with a giant like Dizzy. Now we can fast forward a little bit. We don't have to go through your adolescent years or whatever. We can fast forward to your music career. I understand that in the '60s, I guess when you were going, you started playing. One of your first major gigs was with Gap Mangione. Was that your first studio, recording?
Well, my first recording was it was a Gap Mangione album,
Wow.
Diana in the Autumn Wind, and it was in New York. It was in the '60s, and it was with. I mean, there were so many big guys that I had looked up to my whole life
Yeah,
on the session. It was fantastic. Joe Farrell, Jerome Richards,
yeah.
Clark Terry, uh,
Wow.
Bill Watrous. I can't even, Mike Maneri.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
That is awesome, man. That's awesome. Now, Steve, what drummers had influenced you up until that time? Who were you listening to? Because, like I said, the big drummers, especially in jazz during the '60s, of course, was Elvin, Tony, Max, Roy Haynes, and those guys. Did they have a huge influence on you during that time?
Yeah, from the beginning. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And then, went from Alvin, and then all of a sudden Tony came on. And it was a whole other. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
that's who we listened to. We,
Hmm.
drop the needle and try to figure out what they did. Turn the speed of the record down to 16. You know what I mean? And that's how we tried to learn,
Yeah.
studying all those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. That was very powerful. Now, like I said, I mean, you've been on so many sessions, and the people that you've played with. I mean, when I looked into your background, I was surprised. I didn't know that you played with all these credible musicians. I mean, how'd you hook up with Eric Clapton?
You know, it's a word of mouth business, and
Yeah.
I had told Russ Titleman, who was a producer,
Hmm.
um, you know, I had talked to him when Eric's kid died. I said I
Oh,
was so shocked by that stuff, and I knew Russ knew him, and I asked Russ how he was doing. You know what I mean? I didn't even know him, but I was just so touched and by that story, and
yeah. Yeah.
I told Russ, I said, if there's if there's ever anything I can do, you know, let me know. And a few years later, something came up, and he called me. I don't know if it was because of that, or if Russ mentioned something, but that's what I think happened. I think that and that's how
Yeah.
crazy things happen.
It is, like you said, it's a word of mouth business, and you played with some of the greatest musicians. I mean, I love your stuff with Chick Corea, and of course, Chick made a statement. He said everything that Steve plays is perfect, and you were on some great recordings by him. But you know, the rhythm section that you had, especially during the '70s, was just the most talked about rhythm section. I mean, you and Anthony Jackson were like on everyone's record. And I had Al Di Meola on about a few weeks ago, and he says, man, I made some really good decisions. He says Steve Gadd and Anthony Jackson. I mean, what was it like playing with those guys, man?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, those we're still all like brothers today. Not that we see each other all the time, but
Hmm.
there's a connection that we made back in those years,
Yeah,
and it's there, and it's like when we talk, it's like the last time we saw each other was yesterday.
yeah, yeah.
We made some good music. We went through life together in those years. It was good.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's very good. And like I said, even your style of drumming, I mean, the song rather, that everyone still talks about to this day. It's the one which you did with Paul Simon, 50 Ways to Leave a Lover. I mean, just that rhythm that you had on there, it's still like legendary. Everyone talks about it. But I was amazed that you definitely work with some big guns. I mean, how did you hook up with Frank Sinatra? That was another one that I was like surprised, like, wow.
It was through Quincy Jones and Phil Ramone,
Okay, okay.
because they were involved in. Quincy was producing it, and Phil was, I think, producing it and engineering it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's how I had worked with Quincy, and the reason I worked with Quincy was because of Ralph McDonald. So it's like a word of mouth thing. It's like it's amazing the way that thing happens.
And like I said, you've worked with everyone. I mean, Stanley Clark, Joe Cocker, Carly Simon, so many great people. Now, do you enjoy in your spare time? Do you enjoy teaching, or are you currently teaching like online during this COVID-19?
I'm not. I've done clinics
Mm-hmm.
and I've done some Zoom classes, you know, question and answer things, and a little demonstrating on a practice pad. But up until this COVID, I had been pretty much working, you know, consistently. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And so this kind of break, that I probably never would have taken for myself.
Right.
It's allowed me to, I just sort of stop thinking and try to see what was going to come in. You know what I mean? Or didn't, or maybe nothing would come in. I don't know. But
Right.
I wasn't learning stuff for the next gig. I wasn't, all of a sudden everything stopped. And
So.
before I knew it, I was, I had these Vic Firth sticks with rubber tips. And I started playing on, tables.
Mm-hmm.
I got a pair. I got a pair in a couple of rooms in the house. So I've been playing a lot of rudimental stuff, practicing traditional grip,
Yeah.
and because that's what I started out with, and that's just what came to mind. And when I got back into it, it was like I started. I decided I was going to write a book on, because I had been when I have taught,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain questions that repeat themselves, and
Yes.
a lot of times people want to know about warming up. So I really started thinking about it, and I started really thinking about how I warm up and what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and that just opened it up, and it went to another level. New things came to mind, and a way to put it together that's clear and friendly. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
something that just it happened because of the time I had, and it's stuff that I when I finish it, I'm excited about sharing it. It's like doing an album. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it was I really sat down and wrote some things. I wrote everything.
Yeah.
So and I'm anxious to share that, because I think some of the stuff is really fun and good.
And tell me, Steve, about this. You won a Grammy with your band last year. I believe that was what your first Grammy. You've been nominated before, but you won a Grammy. Tell me about that, man. What was that like?
Always exciting.
Yeah.
It's always, I'm always, I've always been thrilled whenever we did get a nomination. But I never really, you don't let your hopes get up. You
Mm-hmm.
sort of hope, but you never know. You're competing with guys that you love too, that you're friends with, and great players. So it was great to get it, though, to finally to get it. And I think the album is good. So so I was very happy about it.
Yeah, well deserved, man. Now, are you currently, are you streaming any concerts online with your current band? Have you
We
gotten
did a
into
we
do?
did a fundraiser for the baked potato.
Okay.
about a couple of weeks, a week or 2 weeks ago, to raise money for them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's all I've done. But like you were talking about teaching before, so at some point now that I'll have this book, um, I think teaching is a big responsibility, and so I think that if you're going to do that, you have to try to make yourself available, and
Mm,
and this book gives me something that I want to share,
yeah,
along with trying to you know see where the drummers are at and what they want, and what they're asking. There's other things that we can do that, but I also have some things that I know are good, and so maybe I will, depending on what's going on. I think every time I have taught, it's been a learning situation for me.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
When you teach, you learn as much as you teach,
yeah, yeah.
and but and I think it would be great if I if I had the time to take the time and get into it, because it's a whole other ballgame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And
And like I said, you have so much to offer, man. I mean, over 50, 55 years of knowledge. I mean, that would be great, when you finish that book. I wanted to ask you about the honorary doctorate that you received in 2005 from Berkeley, man. What was that like receiving that?
it was fantastic, and yeah, because I immediately went out and started writing prescriptions. No, I didn't.
Steve, you,
No, so
okay.
it was an honor with Abe Laboriel and Patrice Rushen.
Yeah, just
Um,
had Patrice on recently too. Yeah,
yeah, it was great. It was great to share it with those guys. Uh, I mean, for them to consider me on that level is pretty special, and I appreciate that. And I also got one from Eastern School of Music, where I graduated from.
that's great.
And Chick Corea got one the same night.
Wow.
That we both got one the same night. So that's a big honor for me. You know.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, as I said, you've played with so many greats, and what was it like playing with BB King, man?
It was the real deal. Um, when whenever whenever the music is on that level, it's special. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And those guys are the people that wrote the book, so it's it was a pleasure
yeah.
to play music like that with those guys. And that's when I first met Billy Preston
Oh,
on those
wow.
on those sessions. So that was yeah, those gigs were fantastic.
Wow, wow. Now, I was going to ask you, Steve, have you done anything, have you written like for film or done any film scores?
No, I
Okay. Is that something you would like to do? Maybe write for film?
you know if it was a percussion thing,
Yeah,
but I don't consider myself. I mean, I haven't really composed, and that's not what I've never dove into that.
right,
I don't know though. With this much time, we'll see. You never know what's going to happen. I've never had this much time before,
right, right.
and and rather than just, I'm just trying to allow myself to relax with what's going on now in this transition, and try to stay close to my family. I want to keep everybody safe. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
And then when we go back, I mean, it'd be great to play again, but you can't rush those things.
yeah,
And rather than try to keep everything where it was, it's sort of nice to sort of stop for a minute and see, if you allow yourself the opportunity to allow the next thing in. But you need a clear head for that.
yeah.
or else you're just trying to remember what you're supposed to do or learn the next thing. It's, to get in that creative zone, it takes a minute to get there, and so once you're there, you can't go in and out of it. You know what I mean? It's sort of, you get there, and so it comes and goes. But the reason it comes more often is because I'm not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
enjoying that.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve, I wanted to ask you, when you're home or just hanging out maybe with your wife and just relaxing or having a glass of wine, what artists do you listen to? Are there any particular drummers or artists that you're listening to and like, man, this guy's got a lot of talent. I really like his style or his music. Any particular musicians that you're checking out right now?
I like to go back and listen to older things.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and actually, to be very honest, I haven't been listening that much because I've been doing this book and I've been tapping a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I was out at my friend's house when we did this tribute to for the benefit for the baked potato. I was staying with my friend Walt Fowler and his wife Michelle. They have a nice sound system and turntable, and man, it was so great to start playing some albums again. I listened to some Stevie Wonder. We listened to
Wow.
Tony Williams,
Yeah.
McCoy. I mean, it was like, and when you play albums, for me, it's like the album cover has a history.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like from I can tell by the way the cover looks how much how much it's been played. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Just remember, I could go to a lineup of albums and sort of just go and pick the one out just from how much fuzz was hanging off of it and how old it was.
Wow.
It was so I really loved it, and I want to hook that up here. I haven't really put a turntable back up yet, but I want
Huh.
to.
Man, I still love my albums. I still play them all the time. Some of the most beautiful album covers. I was looking at Miles Davis, "Bitches Brew." What a really unique album cover, man. You know, it's just very powerful. But yeah. Also, do you get a chance to? I mean, are you in contact with like a lot of drummers, or you guys talk a lot? Had Billy Cobham on the show because he lives in Switzerland. Billy was on about maybe a month ago, and he was saying, Preston, this COVID-19 isn't going away. He said a lot of people think it is, but it's not. He said we just have to find a way to work around it. But he said that he had some projects with several drummers in the works that they're talking on doing something in the fall. I think Dennis Chambers and some other guys were just collectively trying to put something together and maybe just start streaming concerts and doing things together online. I don't know, that maybe that's the direction in which a lot of people are going since no one can tour and it may be a while before people can go out. But yeah, like I said, I've always been fascinated, man, with your career, the people that you played with. I mean, your resume, more than any drummer that I know, I mean, is unbelievable. I mean, the people that you've played with, it's like a who's who in the music industry. But some of my favorite stuff that you did was with probably Chick Corea. Like I said, a lot of that stuff you did with Chick, you guys have such a good rapport with one another, the way you play. And even the stuff that you did with Al Di Meola. Now, did you ever play with bassist Jaco Pastorius?
Yeah,
Oh, you
we
played with
did.
Jaco too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had some fun together. Yeah.
Great.
Well, we did a Michelle Colombier record together,
Yes, I
and
remember that.
then I played on a couple of he brought me into playing a couple of weather report tracks. So
Yeah. Yeah. You were on weren't you on one of those recordings? Was it Mr. Gone or one of those recordings?
I don't remember which one
Okay.
it was. I
Okay.
don't. It wasn't Mister Gone
Okay.
because I used to listen to that and Heavy Weather.
Heavy Weather. Yeah, that was a big one. Al Di Meola told me that his album Elegant Gypsy and Heavy Weather came out at the exact same time. And I think CBS or whatever put them together and wanted them to do a tour. I think Al said they did a short tour together for like 30 shows or something like that. But listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk, just spending time with me and just having conversation about your career and what you're doing. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Steve Gadd. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.